Floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. Hi, welcome to the Wingmen Show. My name is Drew Brown. We hope to inspire, entertain, and learn something so we can all make this world a better place for our children. I'd like to introduce to you somebody who's my friend, my wingman, my main man, and I have a wingman watching my back, Dr. Paul Thompson. Hey, Paul, what's happening?
Oh, not much. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Thompson, and you just heard from Mr. Drew Brown, Dark Gable. He's the American dream. He's the man, the myth, the legend, the pilot's pilot, the role model's role model, and most importantly, his royal fullness. How are you doing today, Mr. Dark Gable?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad I'm full of knowledge, Paul. I'm glad I'm full of knowledge. Well, we're going to have a great show right now. Check this out. I got a text from my son-in-law, who is that NBA agent now, brand new agent. He came to my home, him, Taryn, the baby, everybody came because of the hurricane. So they spent some time here. While he was here, he met one of these big-time coaches, and he knew him from a while ago. The whole point of this is that the coach really loved my dad, Bundini. And because the book came out, Don't Believe the Hype, he wanted a copy. So my whole point of this entire story is that my son-in-law texted me saying, hey, can you get an autographed book to this coach? Mm-hmm. That brings me to this. I don't do texting like as a form of communication. For me, I need to talk to somebody. I remember my daughter and son both, they got me into texting because they wouldn't answer my phone calls. So if you wanted to talk to me, subliminally, I had to text them. And texting means it's a change of culture. So I'm going to just text him back and say, I need to talk to you, because he knows the LeBron James people and they do boxing documentaries. And I'm very interested in talking to them about Bundini. Don't Believe the Hype is the name of the book, but to do the real documentary on him, a big one. So anyway, that's what I need to talk to him about. But getting back to texting, I feel uncomfortable texting something with feeling because you never know how to take a text. Point being, you have to change, Paul. You have to change. The only thing that won't change is change. And I believe anything that stops growing starts dying. We talked about this before. Could you imagine being in a generation right before us who didn't do computers and now being asked to work a smartphone? It's very confusing.
Impossible.
And if you don't learn how to change with the times, you're going to get left behind. And how do you make change when your life is not doing good? Get naked, look in the mirror, and evaluate yourself. What needs to change? If you're in a bad relationship, think of ways that you can remove yourself from that relationship. Because I wrote something today, and it's about relationships. If you have to beg somebody to love you, that means you don't love yourself. And maybe that's the reason they don't love you. Everybody needs to learn to be their own best friend forever, BFF. Anyway, the whole point of this was texting, changing, and this is a true statement, Paul. Anything that stops growing starts dying. What do you think, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, texting, I do it routinely now. My other friends do. Initially, we didn't. My kids did it, and still do it a lot. I was always amazed that they could do stuff with two fingers. So I use one finger now, but they were using fingers and thumbs, and everything's going. And 10,000 words a minute, I'll do like 3. But texting is good. It does have limitations, though. You really can't show feeling. You really can't show intent. Capital letters and small case letters, that's not enough. It's efficient. It's great for quick messages, but it's not really a good way to really stay in touch with friends. It's good for messages and businesses. I do it sometimes. It's good for exchanging, quick jokes, but I get more satisfaction with speaking with my friends than just texting them. So you got to learn how to speak. That's another thing another danger is if you just text all the time, you don't learn how to speak. learn how to talk to anyone. And another danger is if you, particularly for young people, is if you're using this kind of stilted language and codes, and because you spell things the way it's convenient. You don't know how to spell because, you put BCAUSE. You think that's right, and two, and you have to learn how to read and write properly. So if you're just doing text language, you may be actually quite illiterate. So
yeah, and Paul, communication is everything. Because when you grow up and you get a job, it's an email. Any incorrect spelling, any misuse of the English language actually makes you look stupid.
yes.
You actually have to learn how to read, write, and communicate correctly in order to be what you want to be in this world. That's just how the world works. But the texting is also part of something that I'd like to roll into, and that's this Instagram, social media, Facebook. They just did a study. Facebook did the study, who owns Instagram, saying that it actually hurts teenagers. And the little joke was, you needed a study to know that? Not only is it hurting teenagers, today they just squashed plans for Instagram for kids. So what's happening is this is a culture war, Paul. You see, when I talk about black and white and all that BS, where you're from, you're not from anywhere. You're a human being, you're a species of the human race, okay? And what happens is you grow up with a culture, no matter what that culture is, whether it's on video games, whether it's in the jungles of Brazil, shooting monkeys for food. Whatever culture you're around, it has nothing to do with the melanin, has nothing to do with the shape of your head, with the size of you, has to do with what you're around. And what's happening is our children, they're getting paid $2 million. We talked about it on the show, to play video games now. Now they're saying that's worth something. Point is, people are not playing outside. You realize that when you and I were growing up, we had to be home when the street lights came on. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, they don't have to they need to go out when the street lights don't come on,
right.
Because our children are really starting to get in a culture of not learning English correctly. People come here from other countries. They don't care about learning English correctly, and they all want to know why they're not making it. If you want to learn how to make it in America, get an education, speak English correctly, and the world is yours. Unless you have a special talent like basketball, baseball, music, poetry, art, there are people who are gifted like that. But the average person, you need to have a good education. And that starts off with a good culture. So anyway, my point being, I'm not on social media much. I like Facebook because it got me back in touch with my gunnery sergeant in AOCS, Aviation Officer Candidate School, a long time ago. He was my main man, and he was on Facebook. I like Facebook since then, but I don't live on Facebook. And another thing, I'm glad people watch us on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube especially, because I learned a lot from YouTube, believe it or not. What a teaching source if you know what to put in. But the social media is not my life. It's a part of my life. And another thing, I don't want you to know what I ate tonight. I don't want you to know where I really am. I don't need you to know anything about me.
I can't see a picture of your food.
Because of age, Dr. Paul. I swear. I'll end it with this. Kids just don't understand.
That's true. Well, yeah, everybody's got to get outside, because what happens is now, people have like a lack of vitamin D across the board. And that vitamin D is responsible for a lot of things in your body at any age. Even with this COVID thing, that was, everybody needs vitamin D. Even without a COVID, you do need vitamin D. You need to get out and play. You have large numbers of young people, I understand, who want to join the armed forces, can't, because they can't pass the physical, or they have to change the standards. They have to work out in sneakers. They're just not used to running and playing, and running and playing stickball in the middle of the street in traffic is not the safest thing, admittedly. But you got to get outside and do something other than be a keyboard commando. I don't read a lot of stuff. I'm not on Twitter. I know what Facebook is. I put a couple of pictures on there, but not a lot. Like the food, I don't need to see what you ate last night. I'm sure it was very good. But I think these media things are really disguises for a lot of lonely people. that paint this picture of everything is wonderful, and some have to say this all the time. Everything is great, and I don't think I tend to think it's probably just the opposite. It's a different way of kind of crying out.
Well, sometimes people put negative stuff on it that I definitely don't want to see.
Yeah, I don't.
Sometimes, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's always bad, always bad.
Yes, yeah. Bad news sells, and that's what I like about this show. That we're trying to lift people up. If you want to get hate and find out what's messed up today, and everybody's angry and mad, you can go somewhere else. Really, I choose not to be part of that. There's enough of that. But hope and upliftment can come from other things and other people. It doesn't have to necessarily be church, mosque, or synagogue. It can be every day. So people get their highs different ways, and we're going to roll into this. But one thing about social media, our children especially are living on likes, and they feel if they get more likes and more followers, they're more important. That all comes from low self-esteem for other people to make your esteem higher. But let's talk about self-esteem. Let's talk about how certain people get high, because I know one of the biggest drugs in the world, and that's power. And that comes, the number one sport in the world was the heavyweight championship. To be the heavyweight champion of the world meant you were the number one athlete on the planet. It just does. And I was fortunate enough to grow up with both number one and number two greatest fighters ever to step in the ring. My uncle, Sugar Ray Robinson, and my older brother, Cassius Clay, now known as Muhammad Ali, but I met him as Cassius Clay. And I say all that because this power thing is, I don't know if you know the ego, but when they call only your name as heavyweight champion, walking into a ring and knocking another man out, I don't think that there's anything in the world that actually could boost your false ego or whatever ego up higher than that. So I say all that to tell you that because I grew up with Muhammad Ali, and I always called him the champ or my big brother, because I grew up with the champ. I remember when Daddy first got his first job in 1964 when he fought Sonny Liston. And what happened through the years, they fought all the time. But eventually, those phone calls for the next fight kept getting longer and longer and longer and longer. And eventually, they stopped. And that's one of the reasons that I am who I am today, because I have an entrepreneur spirit 100%, and I've done a lot of things by myself. But I always said I'm going to have backup. I watched my daddy really kind of go down the tubes, waiting on this phone to ring for the next fight. I'm saying all that to tell you that last fight that the champ took in the Bahamas for $11 million, number one, he did it for money. This man made over $57 million, and he was broke. And that's because people took advantage of him. And he called my dad and said, I need to fight. My dad said, no, we can't go fight. You can't fight anymore. And the champ told my dad, man, if I'm going to get my ass kicked, can you please be with me when it happens? And my dad couldn't say no. Anyway, it was a very miserable night. He got the shit beat out of him. It just wasn't a good ending. Well, you sent me a YouTube, Dr. Paul Thompson, of the heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield fighting again. I'm going to let you give all the statistics. I'm going to let you tell us about this, but it was nauseating to see him get knocked out and not be able to fight anymore. Yes, he looked good, looked fit, but it was disgusting to see an ex-heavyweight champion going out like that. And buddy, he's not the only one. I can't tell you how many fighters have continued, and it's because of that drug power, not money anymore, because now they get paid a lot. They still have to hear their name as being in the middle of that ring. Dr. Paul, poor Vander, who lives here in Atlanta. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I did watch it. It was a pay-per-view event. Admittedly, I didn't watch it on pay-per-view. I watched it on YouTube the next day. And it was a first round knockout. It went about 15 seconds, maybe 20, 30 seconds. And it was unfortunate. I was familiar with the guy he was fighting, the former UFC champion. But to have to do that at that age, I like martial arts myself, but it's something I do, voluntarily. I don't have to. I'm certainly not taking any kind of damage. But it was kind of sad. I guess the sad part was when he was not so much knocked down, but when he was going through the ropes. That's something you typically don't see. And he was just didn't have the control. Now, I do remember, just changing things slightly when Larry Holmes fought Mike Tyson years ago. And Larry Holmes was kind of removed from active boxing and came in to fight Tyson when he was at his height. And that didn't go very long either. And I thought about the wisdom of that. And he was a lot younger than 58 years old. Evander was like 58 going on 59. Larry Holmes was, I think, maybe in his late 30s or something. But he went down really hard. And later on, I saw an interview where he said, well, why I took that? I didn't really train much. But he was he's finishing a building. He was building in Eastern Pennsylvania, where he's from. He was completing a building, and he needed about $2 million to finish it. And he said they offered him about 3.5. And he figured after taxes and other stuff, he could get about $2 million. So he took the fight for that, got knocked out, got paid, and finished the building. So that was kind of for money too, but he kind of laughs at it. I don't think he was that badly hurt.
But Evander from here in Atlanta. Why don't you tell us about what you know about Evander?
I'd met him a couple times informally at a barbershop across the street from where he used to live. Very nice man. Very welcoming. We just kind of shot the breeze, and he was friendly with everyone that I saw. Lived in a mansion that was on 100 acres of property. My daughter went to high school across the street. In fact, the mansion was there before the high school, and the high school property is probably a fraction of the size of his property across the street. I don't think he doesn't live there anymore.
No, but Rick Ross has it now.
Yeah, I think Rick Ross is there.
Didn't you tell me he's living in an apartment or something?
I saw I think on CNBC thing where they were trying to help professional athletes who'd fallen on hard times get back on their feet, and they did a story on him, and I remember him saying that he lost a lot of money from people that he trusted, just like what you said. People that he trusted that cheated him, and he was taken. So I think the lesson there is that all of us need to have basic education, a basic financial education, and be like kind of Ronald Reagan, we say trust but verify. I think the real phrase is verify, trust, and verify again. So
but, they don't have very good role models as far as financing.
No.
I mean, the first thing a rapper does is invest in jewelry that goes down immediately, especially if it's customized. And instead of going for a quality diamond, they go for 1,000 cheap diamonds. Yeah. So some of their role models are not great financially, because if other people can make money, you can make money. You just have to learn how.
Right.
And talking about money, he took that fight for money. Ali took that fight for money. Most of them take that fight for money, but some of them take it for glory. Remember you said Larry Holmes got beat up? Well, he beat up Ali. He took a fight with Ali.
Right.
And so it all comes back around. And talking about that, I tried to order something for my zero turn because I got acres out here that I have to cut. Well, guess what? The truckers in this country, they need truckers so bad. There are signs everywhere for truck drivers with bonuses, with salary increases right on the street everywhere. There's a loss of truck drivers. Such a loss, how about this, that they're thinking about lowering the age from 21 years old to 18 years old. The average age of a truck driver is 48 years old. Now, there are different kinds of truck drivers. There are day truck drivers, overnight truck drivers, long haulers, and some of those trucks are like beautiful condominiums, and some of them are not. It's a whole different life, Dr. Paul, and it doesn't look like young people are going that way. And if we don't get more truckers, things are going to cost more. And the only way I see solving that problem, we were truckers too. except our trucks were 777s in the air going all over the world. We did the same thing they did. So if we don't get more truckers, things are going to slow down. And the only way they're going to get more truckers is to pay them more. The last thing about these truckers, it's not like it used to be either. You can't work overtime because they'll shut the engine down. There's only a certain amount of hours per day the trucks are allowed to run. They have GPS. There's no going other places. There's no going over. There are governors on it. You can't go over a certain speed, even if you tried. So there are a lot of rules and regulations that have cut down on a lot of deaths, I'm sure. But you actually know a trucker.
Yeah, I do. I had a long conversation with a dear friend of mine who was a trucker. He's an authority on truckers. And he's always said that, it's hard. It's a tough job, actually. It's tough on the body. And like you just said, some of the accommodations are not great. He would live in the truck maybe for a month. Everything, just live in the truck and stay at a truck stop and get something at a Walmart on the road constantly. And he said one of the things that keeps people from coming in, sometimes they don't make much money. He said typically you're paid by the mile. He's making 28 cents a mile. Some will pay 58 cents a mile. So the money can be real good or not at all. It depends on who you work with. His truck broke down a lot. He was not a young man. And he said young folks are not choosing it because it just doesn't pay enough for a lot of them. They want to do other things. Now, I read yesterday where sometimes they're so desperate for trucks. People don't realize that most of the stuff in the United States and the world moves on trucks. No matter how big the airplane or ship is, when it gets there, there's a truck delivering stuff. If the truck stops, your shelves in your supermarkets and stores are going to be bare. That's how it gets there. So if you don't have enough truck drivers, you're going to have more shortages. I heard they were so short on truck drivers, they're paying them bonuses, paying them special bonuses to come and work somewhere, and they'll fly them out someplace and work for 2 weeks and fly them back. I don't know how long that'll last, but the projection is that in the next 10 years, the country will be like maybe short 110,000 truck drivers. And then another thing that's keeping some truckers from people from being truck drivers actually is that a lot of them can't pass a drug test, a certain percentage. So it's not just autonomous vehicles, robot vehicles that'll be doing it. That's down the road, but you're going to need a lot more truckers. But he just said it's tough. It's tough on the body physically. If you're an owner operator, you can do better. But if you're just being employed, you're looking for the best deal, looking for retirement plans, looking for benefits. I guess some offer that and some don't. But what are your thoughts about being a truck driver?
Well, just think about it. We were truck drivers. We did hub turns. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, we flew both for FedEx. And early on in our careers, it's how FedEx made all their money. We would fly somewhere late at night, come back to Memphis, pick up packages, go back to that city, sleep all day, and do it again for a week. And that wasn't easy on our bodies either, because we were on the opposite end of the clock, and that is unhealthy. We know that. So because we're talking about unhealthy, I now have a Wingmen PSA, on health. Everybody, let's try to drink 1 gallon of water a day. 1 gallon a day. Your body is 60% water. This is one thing you can do to change your life. This has been a Wingman PSA. Thank you, Paul.
I agree.
Well, how about this, Paul? You were just talking about not passing drug tests. Perfect intro for this. We have just found out, which I knew a long time ago, but alcohol and whiskey are leaving campuses and weed is coming in. They're smoking more weed now on campuses than they are drinking. And binge drinking is going down. There's been a lot of deaths associated with whiskey. And I call everything whiskey because I don't want you to think that you're drinking hard, light lemonade, that you think that it's not whiskey. It's all whiskey. Let's just get that straight. But anyway, whiskey's going out of the colleges and weed is coming in. Plus, Did you know that the NHL and Major League Baseball, they do not test for marijuana? So their players actually can smoke marijuana for pain, for tension, for any of the medical uses, while the NBA and the NFL, you get in a lot of trouble. I think the NFL just stopped suspending without pay. But there is marijuana is legal in America in certain states. It's not legal federally. And I don't think people understand the difference between what alcohol and marijuana is. Number one, I haven't heard of anybody overdosing from marijuana. I'm sure there's somebody who's done it and has tried to do it, but that's not what happens. And yet people die from alcohol every day. So if kids are going to do something, you'd rather do something that won't make them die. And also, as far as illegal things, if you look in the prisons, I guarantee you 80% of the major crimes is alcohol related some kind of way. Well, when you smoke a joint, guess what? You don't want to rob a bank. Not today, maybe tomorrow, but today I'd like to go get some Cheetos. Okay? So this marijuana is happening here in America. And one day it's going to be a federal law. The ones who are stopping it is the alcohol industry, believe it or not, are putting all the money into anti-marijuana laws because it's all a money game. Until the cigarette companies can get hold of the marijuana, it's all a money game. As soon as they get hold of it, as soon as the right people make the right money from it, it'll be legal everywhere. But my point is, I'd rather have kids smoking weed than drinking whiskey. That's my opinion. I have personal knowledge about whiskey. Paul?
Well, I'm a non-drinker. I've never smoked anything. I'm actually allergic to smoke, so I'm not a good authority on it.
What about all them brownies you're eating, though?
I don't eat any brownies. That's the last thing I eat. I get a chocolate chip cookie now and then from Whole Foods. They have a jumbo cookie. They're really good. One is enough sugar for a week. But anyway, the thing about that is, I wonder, changing subject slightly, if people are driving real crazy with this kind of post-COVID shutdown thing, and I'm wondering if they're high. I think a lot of them are high on something. I see a lot of crazy stuff on the road all the time. So,
and you don't think that's whiskey?
I don't know.
You think you drive better high than on whiskey? Both of them are stupid as hell. But I think whiskey is the problem on the roads.
Okay. Well, you could be right, but I think you can still be cited for driving under the influence.
Oh, DUI now. It's driving.
Yeah, but even with marijuana, I think so.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah. So,
that's the incorrect use of marijuana. There are medical uses for marijuana.
Yes.
And it's actually legal in Georgia medically. You just can't get it in Georgia.
Really? Yeah, medically. Yeah, medical is one thing. It's like opioids have a place. But if you abuse anything, you can get into real trouble.
Well, opioids especially, all these people who talk bad about weed, they all have prescriptions from their doctors. Not all of them, obviously. I'm just talking like a New Yorker. A lot of them have prescriptions from their doctors for these opioids, and they think that they can take legal drugs and that's okay because they got prescriptions for it. So they get high from pills, yet saying, I can't believe they're smoking weed. Or even better than that, how about everybody sitting around the office drinking scotch, okay, and have the nerve to say, I've acquired a taste for scotch. No, scotch is disgusting. Okay. I've tried it a couple of times. It's disgusting. Point being, I think weed is a better option than alcohol.
Wow. Well, I think further studies is needed, but we'll just see how it goes.
Yes, we will. And going about further studies, how about the military and this vaccine and COVID? Okay, this COVID is getting crazier by the minute. People's excuses are weirder by the minute. I met a couple of other people who are not vaccinated. As soon as they told me, first of all, I'm asking now, because if you get close to me, are you vaccinated? He said, no, I went just like this, Paul. Okay, so how's things going, man? Because I'm not going to die for this. But how about this? Nurses in a hospital refused to get the vaccine. All of them quit the hospital, and now they can't even deliver babies at that hospital. But my question to you was, the military. Now, mandates you have a vaccine. Mandates, unless you have a religious reason and you did not take another vaccine prior to this because of that religious reason.
Yeah. I saw where the active duty military has to be vaccinated by December 15th, 2022. I think the reserve units and other branches can go into 2022 to the spring or something like that. But active duty is 2021 of December here. Exemptions. It's kind of hard to get a religious exemption, I think, because to be in the military, they've taken a bunch of shots anyway. Just to be in school, you've taken a bunch of shots.
The amazing thing about that exemption is you have had to have that religious exemption already certified for another vaccine that you didn't take.
Right.
So the military, you do it or not. I'm repeating myself, but you can't smoke in restaurants. You have to wear your seatbelt. These are laws. There's no freedom with that. To wear a mask to prevent a disease from killing your fellow human beings, not only fellow Americans, your fellow human beings, there's nothing wrong with wearing a mask until this thing goes away or getting vaccinated. We just had to have that discussion at Katrina's shop. She owns a beautiful shop. She does eyelashes. The people there were not vaccinated. She talked to them. They agreed to wear masks, and that was great. And it's just the way it is, Paul. Can you make us feel a lot better now and give us a good Wingman story?
A quick one. Here's a Wingman story. Sometimes we may need to be wingmen to each other. Long time ago, I was flying with a good friend of mine, actually, He had some difficulty in training. He got through the training, and he was on his first flight after this training, and it was with me. And we were going to go to a place we'd gone many times before. And I said, I told him, I said, you can fly all the way. I'll let you fly. He said, fine. So we go down. We're outside the United States, and we're in this area. The weather is bad, but we had a lot of gas, and we just went to a holding pattern for a while. And after a while, the weather cleared, and it was a beautiful sunny day.
Why were you holding?
We were holding because the clouds were too low. We didn't have enough visibility to land. There are certain minimum visibility requirements that you have to have in order to make a visual landing. And at this time, in this place, that was the only option, a visual landing. But we couldn't see, so there was no visual. So we waited until the visibility got high enough above our limits, and we were able to land. Well, the weather moved out completely, and it's clear, bright and sunny day. Long story short, he executes this instrument procedure. We fly specific steps. He does it perfectly. I couldn't do it any better. It's like a computer's doing it. And we're flying, we're cleared to land. We're coming down. It's a very high elevation airport. It's very high up, thousands of feet in the air from above mean sea level. And we're coming down. We're looking good. And all of a sudden, I notice we're coming down a little too fast. I say, let's check your rate of descent. I say it. Nothing happens. And I look out and say, hey, check your rate of descent. I say, it increases. I look over to him. I said, check your rate of descent. And he was frozen at the controls. He was actually frozen with a look of fear in his face. I'm looking at the side. He's not flying. We're very close to the ground at this point. And I just took the airplane from him unexpectedly and added power, and we landed okay. Let's just say we landed very, very firmly. I'll put it that way, with no damage. Had I not done that, there would have been very big damage. And the point there was, this was a friend who had some difficulties, and I could see where it was. He was great. He'd flown, with thousands of miles. And he was great until we were about 600 feet about 800 feet above the ground. And he stopped flying. He wasn't there anymore. It's not over until the engines shut down. And kind of actually shook, as with the two of us, it shook us up both a lot. No, but we didn't expect it. Long story short, we flew some more legs on that trip, and I made him fly each leg. And I went back into flight instructor mode, which I did in the Navy before I came to FedEx. And I guided him through land. And he did the same thing the next 3 or 4 times. But when he'd freeze, I would talk him through it. And he was able to do it fine. And even at the last one, we did like 6 of them. At the number 5 and 6 were pretty good. They're acceptable. But he needed help, and he definitely needed help. And I needed help too, because we didn't need to break an airplane that day. So he got me there very beautifully, and I got him on the ground with a save and then instructed him. So, I did something good. I helped him. I was an unexpected wingman, but I never had anyone before or since just freeze at the controls like an old movie, but he sure did. So that's my wingman story.
Wow, I had my mouth open the entire story. Great story, Paul. Great story. Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.